soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, so the taste or sense objects remains, but ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, one becomes fixed in consciousness. So the aim of the Hare Krishna movement is to become fixed in higher consciousness. As I said before, the first lecture I heard from Srila Prabhupada, he asked the devotees there whether they wanted to become happy. There wasn't a lot of devotees there, but we had to work with at that time. And no one knew the answer to such a deep question, whether they wanted to become happy or not. So no one answered. So Prabhupada looked quite concerned. And he had asked again, don't you want to become happy? And still no one wanted to guess because we weren't supposed to speculate. So no one answered. So Prabhupada asked for a third time, don't you want to become happy? And one devotee decided to guess and said yes. And Prabhupada looked quite relieved. At least someone wanted to become happy. So that's basically whatever anyone is doing, they're doing to become happy. The only difference is what they think will make them happy. And that depends upon association and experience. Obviously, people do things which are not what hopefully we consider happiness, would lead to happiness. But because they do those things, obviously, they think that that's the source of happiness for them. Even when the ladies stick pearls through their tongue, they do it to become happy. Have you ever seen that? A lady sticking a pearl through their tongue? What's that? Oh, now men do it also. If the ladies can do it, why can't the men? In any case, the question is, what will actually make us happy? That's called knowledge. Now the question is, what is actually knowledge? Knowledge is something that's eternal. If it's not eternal, then how can it actually be real knowledge? If it's true sometimes and not true all the time, then how could it actually be knowledge? It must be partially knowledge, perhaps, but it's also partially not knowledge, to one degree or another. So the fact that we're eternal means that everyone is looking for eternal happiness. After all, who would want to be happy sometimes and then unhappy other times, which is what the material world is all about. Sometimes happy, sometimes unhappy. But everyone is trying to maximize their happiness and minimize their distress. But that doesn't work in the material world very well, because we happen to have a material body. And whether we like it or not, the body is sometimes in a favorable condition. It doesn't give us so many problems, and sometimes it gives us more problems than others. So knowledge begins with the fact that we're eternal. But that's until we become free from the illusory energy. Sometimes it's theoretical and sometimes it's intellectual. But as far as realized, it's only intellectually it can be partially understood, and therefore that gives us some direction in life. In other words, if we don't know we're eternal, we have to accept the fact that we're this body, and therefore we have to seek some kind of happiness through the body. Whether we have the body of a demigod, or we have the body of a human being on this planet, or the body of, just like 2 days in a row I had to take out our friend who has, I counted his legs, he has 50 legs on each side. But I took him out and gave him the whole garden to play around in. So he's also looking for happiness. And usually his family members come to my room, at least one or two of them a month. I don't know what they're looking for, but so they're also looking for some kind of happiness. And I'm also looking for happiness. And I don't want to step on them, so I invite them outside. So, happiness should be as long as possible because we're eternal. Now, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that Bhoktaram yagatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam gyatva shantim richati. The persons who know me as the ultimate controller, I won't say exactly in the order of the translation, the ultimate proprietor of all this universe, the ultimate benefit, because the first part is that we're not the proprietors. So we're not the proprietors of the material universe or any part of it. We're not even the proprietors of this body, because if we were the proprietors of this body, we could actually control it and say, please, I demand that you stop aging. So we can all say that, we can all tell our body right now, stop changing. You're my body, you should do what I ask you to do, or else you're being disobedient and I'll have to chastise you. So stop aging. But we probably won't get a very good response because we're not in control of the body. We can't stop it, any part of it from changing. And therefore we can't consider ourselves, even the proprietor of our own body, what to speak of anything in relation to the body. And we're not the enjoyers. Because if we were the enjoyers, then we wouldn't suffer. But because we suffer, therefore we can't say that we're the absolute enjoyer. Or everything that everyone else does, we should be enjoying. But many things other people do, we suffer because of what they do. And we're not the ultimate benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities. Because we can't help ourselves if we're in ignorance. And even if we try to help others by giving them knowledge, that we can only give them knowledge according to what's being supplied to us. And what's being supplied to us is not our invention, just like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that we're not this body and how the body is changing. And he said that 5,000 years ago, so he was way ahead of all of us when we repeat it. Or we can just repeat what he said 5,000 years ago. So it's not our original statement that we've realized. It's something that Krishna is helping us understand. And all we can do is assist him in repeating his message, which is real knowledge. So that's the foundation, that we're eternal. For years probably, that's all he generally spoke about. In the beginning, he explained that we're not this body, and he talked about the supreme consciousness. Sometimes Prabhupada didn't even bother, he wouldn't mention Krishna because his audience couldn't accept Krishna as being a person. It's cowherd boy. When I came to the movement, there was a picture of Gopal with this, you may have seen it, a blue picture. Krishna has blue skin, and he has right next to him what I thought was a deer. Was actually a calf, and his mother cow was in the background. First I thought he was a girl. I was wondering, I wonder why they worship God as a girl. Then I found out he's a beautiful cowherd boy. So generally Prabhupada didn't introduce Krishna as a beautiful cowherd boy at the beginning. He introduced him as the supreme consciousness, because many things are just beyond our actual experience and even beyond our ability to accept intellectually. So different times at different audiences probably present Krishna consciousness differently. In 1968, or maybe it was 67, Prabhupada went to one of the places in East Village of New York. And it was an underground place. People used to go there and take drugs and things like that, listen to rock music. and Prabhupada was invited to give a lecture there. He went there and he gave a lecture, and his lecture was about the parampara. So Prabhupada didn't always follow this stereotype. Well, actually, he gave a lecture about the Panchatattva and the parampara. So he didn't always follow the stereotype, because otherwise we never would have heard anything about the Panchatattva and the parampara if he only spoke according to our level of, or the people's levels of comprehension. So in the same way, Krishna consciousness in the beginning, the theory that we should mainly hear about is something that we can actually perceive. Namely, we're not this body. And also in the second canto, second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Lord in the heart, it's the third chapter actually, third chapter, Lord in the heart, then we should also try to understand intellectually how the super soul is guiding us, so that we have the opportunity to take shelter of him. In other words, if we know he's there, we can ask him questions. It's not like we ask him a question, Krishna will respond, "Can you ask me a more intelligent question?" If he does, you're very fortunate. Generally, Krishna listens to he's observing everything we're doing, and what to speak of, we ask him a question about Krishna consciousness. Or we actually pray to him in terms of what's actually helpful for our development of Krishna service and Krishna consciousness. So he's there, and he's intellectually perceivable also, because the fact is, with a little inquiry, we have to wonder, where is my memory coming from? There's names, sometimes I look at someone, I can't remember what their name is. And then I go A, B, C, D, go down the list, see if Krishna will remind me, according to the first letter of their name, if he'll give me some remembrance what the name is. And sometimes it doesn't work, and then Krishna says, well, look it up in your list. So if we think we have a good memory, we may have a good memory as an instrument for Krishna, but if Krishna doesn't want, then we won't remember anything. Except for, as I said before, when Braj Bihari Prabhu went to see the elderly Puri Maharaj, who was over 100 years old, and Braj Bihari Prabhu, if you may know, is the head of ISKCON Resolve. And he said, Puri Maharaj, it's me, Braj Bihari. And Braj Bihari said, and Puri Maharaj said, I'm sorry, I can't remember anything. I can't remember you. I can't remember anything. All I can remember, I'm over 100 years old, and now all I can remember is Krishna. So that's what we're all trying to strive to be, come to the platform. We can't remember anything. Everything we remember is about Krishna. In any case, that's Krishna's mercy. Every moment, whatever we can remember, is Krishna's mercy. Whether it be for material reasons, or it may be for spiritual reasons. But if we have good association, then we can understand that we're never alone, we're always with Krishna, and that if we take shelter of Krishna through his representatives, because trying to take shelter of Krishna directly will not be as productive as if we take shelter of Krishna through his devotees. Because it's through his devotees we actually learn how to take shelter of Krishna because the only thing Krishna really wants is bhakti, is love. So love is there in our heart, but it has to be awakened by good association with those who actually have love for Krishna already. We can't learn something from someone if he doesn't know anything about what we're trying to learn. But if someone is actually experiencing what we're asking about, then it's much easier for us to learn from them. So only someone who's a pure devotee, and in our case, Srila Prabhupada, who actually is situated in the spiritual world with Krishna, then if we take shelter of him, then the super soul reciprocates with us accordingly. And even we may think, I'm approaching Krishna independently, but that's not very productive unless we approach Krishna and the Supersoul through his representative. Of course, Prabhupada also has his representative, but his representative should represent Prabhupada. Otherwise, how could they be his representative? In other words, each one of us, potentially, we can act as Prabhupada's representative, or the representative of Prabhupada's representatives, but somehow or another we have to be connected with Prabhupada. Because at least whatever state of consciousness anyone else in our society is on, at least we acknowledge that Prabhupada was in the spiritual world with Krishna. And therefore, whatever is manifested within the society of ISKCON is a manifestation of Prabhupada's mercy. Mercy in the sense that he's presenting Krishna consciousness as it, just not as it is. When we say as it is, it means factually everything is there, including the experience. And the experience is out of unalloyed. We say love, it could be priti purvakam. Priti means affection. So Prabhupada was experiencing the affection that Krishna has for his devotees and for himself, and the affection that the devotees of Krishna have for Krishna and all the other devotees. So he was always experiencing that and manifesting that in his activities. Now for us to do that, we have to practice. It's not we weren't born, most of us weren't born as uttama adhikaris. That as soon as we came out of the womb, as soon as we saw our mother, we thought of Mother Jasoda. Most of us never heard of Mother Jasoda until we came to the movement. And even now, if we see our mother, we may not remember Mother Jasoda or Rohini or anyone else. We may remember who we think is our mother and forget who actually, that soul within the body, who's acting as our mother in this lifetime. And therefore appreciate also that she's representing Krishna in our lives in that way. In any case, somehow or another we have to contact Prabhupada through, either directly through his books, his deity, or through his instructions, or through his representatives who are helping us contact Prabhupada and appreciate him for, as best they can, for who he actually is and what platform he's situated on. Now Prabhupada was not just trying to become personality. As a matter of fact, he avoided that throughout his manifested pastimes. He wasn't trying to just be a charismatic leader. He was trying to connect us with the parampara and appreciate how he was a servant of his spiritual master, as an example, and the wonderful qualities that his spiritual master had, or has. And it's similarly, Srila Gokishore Das Babaji, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Sri Jagannath Bas Babaji, Baladevi Debushan, Vishwanath Chakravarti, the six Goswamis, the Panchatattva, and ultimately all of Krishna's residents or associates in Vrindavan. But that also applies to the movement. It's not that in the movement, in the spiritual world, there are souls, and in the movement we have half souls. Eventually, in the spiritual world, everyone has a relation with Krishna, and here everyone has a relation with Maya. We do have a relation with Maya, because Maya is also Krishna's servant, but we all also, every devotee within the society also has a relation with Krishna. And if we want to become happy, then we have to understand things more as completely as possible. Now, this movement is meant to show us how to properly respect every devotee and help others who are not on the platform of even participation in devotion, to help them, the innocent they're called, to help them appreciate how nice it is to associate with devotees and develop a relation with Krishna. And those who are against Krishna were actually meant to defeat their philosophy in the best possible way, because they're causing great harm in the world. We can't oppose them physically, just like it says in the Nectar of Devotion, that if someone blasphemes Krishna, then you should immediately take a knife and cut out their tongue. But that would be impractical in this age, because first of all, there would be too many tongues on the street. And the next thing is we're supposed to cut out our own tongue, and I don't know if we're prepared to do. We're supposed to take our own life. So I don't know if we're prepared to do that. And it would be very practical, because there'd be no one left to preach. So what's more practical in this age is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to defeat atheistic propaganda through preaching. Now, many people, it's a waste of time, especially if they're against the heart Krishna, and they're adamant in denying anything that's real. You can, if someone is actually not convinced, or they're taking shelter of false philosophy for one reason or another, because we've come to the material world in order to forget Krishna. And we put up so many defenses against remembering Krishna or becoming Krishna conscious that we become imprisoned by those defenses, intellectual, mental, physical defenses against acknowledging Krishna as being God. And if we think we're more powerful than the super soul, who's trying to convince these people that he's there, and we think that we're going to save these people, well, good luck. Probably if you're in a battlefield, as it says, and you're supposed to help the wounded people, the best thing to do is to find the people who are not so wounded and help them. Otherwise, if you try to help the people who are terminally ill, then you might get a little disappointed. And the people you could have helped who weren't so ill, who are not so wounded, they'll die. And the people who you're trying to save, who are going to die anyhow, will die. So we have to find the innocent people, and that takes some sifting through, and present Krishna consciousness to them too, and not try to go beyond our capacity and save the people who are actually just wanting to waste our time, because they take pleasure in seeing frustrating us, frustrating our attempts to help them become Krishna conscious. So the expertise of, first of all, comes from identifying the devotees. As Rupa Goswami has said, well, first of all, we have to understand that Krishna is theoretically the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of everything, including the affection and love we're actually looking for, which is manifested through the devotees as much as they're actually absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Krishna is like the fire, and as much as any one of us are in the fire, then we glow also like the fire glows. But we don't take the place of the fire. We're just one of the sparks in the fire. But at least we're in the fire, and we're glowing. So we have to acknowledge that Krishna is, at least theoretically, accept that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then we have to become convinced that all the other activities, including the ones that we may be involved in the present, are more or less wasting our time. As it says, Mogaisha Moga Karmano, Moga Gyan. Oh, first of all, Krishna says, Abhijananti Mamuda, Manushim Tanum Ashrityam, Param Bhavam Ajanato, Mama Bhuta Maheshwaram. That the fools, they deride me and my descending in this human-like form. They don't know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. So it's not so easy to actually experience Krishna. In other words, the idea that he's a cowherd boy in Vrindavan and he has friends like the gopis and the cowherd boys, and they run and play in Vrindavan and they dance Krishna, and the gopis, they dance with Krishna, and sometimes they, Radharani, Srimati Radharani and her friends cook for Krishna. It makes a nice story. It's like the Krishna book. But as far as our experiencing it, we may not be on the level of experiencing the interplay, the emotional interplay between Krishna and his devotees, how they're overwhelmed with love and affection for Krishna, and how Krishna is overwhelmed with love and affection for them. We may not experience it, although it sounds good theoretically. So, we at least have to acknowledge that Krishna could be a cowherd boy in Vrindavan eternally, and he herds cows, and that he even sometimes drinks milk. He's not a vegan. That may be hard for some people to accept. But anyhow, that's how Krishna is presented. But then we have the whole vast world nowadays, with all the intricacies of people who are glorified and people who can appreciate because they're more expert in different things than we are. Those who are karmis, how much expert businessmen they are. The jnanis, how much knowledge some people have, and how many followers they have, and how much they're appreciated by their followers, and how nicely they've organized their societies and their movements. So many different things, but they don't have Krishna. And then we have those who are hoping for liberation, who are detached and austere, tolerant, etc., but their aim is not Krishna consciousness. So Krishna says, Mogaisha Moga Karmano, Moga Jnana Vichetasaha, Rakshasem Asrim Chaiva, Prakriti Mohanim Shitaha. So all these persons that we normally admire, who seem to be very sincere about what they're doing, and they are sincere in their own way, then we should understand that without Krishna, that everything that they're doing, they're accomplishing in the world, all their cultivation of understanding of reality, all their detachment from material existence, is all going to be frustrated, bewildered. It's called mogaisha, frustrated. So what's the alternative? That even we're in the association of devotees, even they have this tendency to sometimes appreciate and act as if they were karmis. Sometimes they have tendency to speculate and present all kinds of devious understandings apart from Krishna consciousness. And sometimes they appear very detached and unconcerned about what's going on, and they seem very peaceful, whatever else. But Krishna says, and because they're not in Krishna consciousness, therefore their association is not as valuable as even a devotee who is seemingly not very strict in his habits, not very understanding of the philosophy, not very tolerant. Still, Krishna says, Mahatmanas tumam partha daivim prakritim ashitya vajnana manaso gyatra bhutidim avya. Still they're under the spiritual energy to the degree that they're practicing Krishna consciousness. Satatam kirtiyanto mam yatantas chadrida vrtaha namasyantas shamam bhakta nityukta upasade. If they're chanting Krishna's name, if they're serving with some determination, if they're actually appreciating Krishna and his devotees, then they're progressively coming closer and closer to actually what reality. And they're actually manifesting actually what is Krishna consciousness. And if we appreciate that, as Rupa Goswami says, if we respect them within our mind, if they just chant Hare Krishna, or at least try to chant Hare Krishna, and if they are determined to follow their vows that they've taken at the time of initiation and to become more fixed in Krishna consciousness, then we should try to find their good quality and try to follow them, their example, appreciate it. If we don't appreciate someone who's getting up early or someone who's chanting their rounds every day, at least for they're doing that, then we'll lose our taste for chanting rounds. We think, oh, big deal, they're chanting Hare Krishna every day, 16 rounds or 5 rounds or 1 round. If we don't appreciate whatever they're doing, then we'll lose our we'll lose our enthusiasm for what we're not appreciating. That lack of appreciation will cover our appreciation it's by enthusiasm that we can even chant one round. And if we're not appreciating someone for chanting one round a day, then we'll lose our enthusiasm for chanting one round a day. So we have to try to see what devotees are doing and try to appreciate that. And that will spark their appreciation, their enthusiasm, and it'll spark our enthusiasm also for doing the very thing that they're doing. So we don't appreciate and try to see the good qualities in the devotees, if they're chanting, if they're serving with determination, what to speak if they're appreciating Krishna and his devotees. So on the positive way, if we appreciate whatever the devotees are doing, which is following Prabhupada's instructions, following our Acharya's instructions, because it's not just Srila Prabhupada's instructions, ultimately it's our Acharya's and Krishna's instructions. If we appreciate anyone who's following those things, then we will develop our enthusiasm to following them and make advancement in devotional service. Or if we're appreciating if we're satisfied by someone's service and devotional service, then that devotee will spiritually advance because of our appreciation, satisfaction with their service. So that's called the beginning of love. Now, if we want to go from A to Z all at once, it's not possible. It's a gradual process. But there is a process. And it's not just mechanically following, although mechanically following is better than not following. Because if we mechanically follow then at least we're following. Now we want to go deeper than that. In other words, to come to the platform of actually asking Krishna to engage us in his loving service. Because it's quite simple, actually. It's so simple that we don't understand it, because it's too simple. Because, as Prabhupada said, it's complicated for the complicated, and it's simple for the simple. So we're trying to become simple, but from being complicated. So every day, most of us, if not all of us, we're chanting Hare Krishna, and we're thinking, what's the big deal chanting Hare Krishna? So to understand what the result is and how to do it properly, that's why someone like Prabhupada is so valuable, because he actually knows how to chant Hare Krishna. He knew how to chant Hare Krishna before, and he still knows how to chant Hare Krishna. So we hear Srila Prabhupada chanting Hare Krishna, we should hear what he's telling us we're supposed to hear, like a child calling for his mother. So when we chant, first of all, we have to chant to Krishna, Hare Krishna, that it's not just like repeating letters of the alphabet, Hare Krishna. We're actually, now, since generally speaking this is called invocative case. Invocative case means you're addressing someone. Now, generally speaking, we don't say, for instance, Julian Yatra. We don't say that because after a while people think, are we crazy? I'm right here, why do you keep on addressing me? So when we say, generally say Julian Yatra, Kaktala, how are you? Something more than that. But here we're just suggesting Krishna and Srimati Radharani constantly. And so it appears that, what's going on here? Why don't we say something about, that's what these prayers are about. Venam Kwanantam Aravinda Dalaya Taksha. So that we have prayer. But here we're addressing Krishna, and the question is how to do it in such a way, it's not, it makes some sense that we're addressing Krishna. So that's where our consciousness and our mood comes in. In other words, it's good when I heard, which I generally practice when I'm doing japa, that Prabhupada would break up the chanting of the holy names into different parts. Like Instead of just saying Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Prabhupada would break it up and say, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, and then Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He makes some distinction between. So that's actually, if we do that, it's much easier. At least I find it's easier to actually hear the holy name. But the next thing is, if we're trying to chant like a child calling for his mother, then we actually have to think, it has to be some kind of realization. Why would I do that? Right now I think I'm doing fine here in the material world. I get prasadam every day, I have a place to sleep, and I'm not so old. I'm going to be here for a long time. I read all, I got my Bhakti Shastri test, I passed it, so I'm doing pretty good. So maybe when I get old and ugly and no one loves me anymore, I'll cry out to Krishna, help me. But it's not like that right now. I don't really feel like I'm really so dependent on Krishna. I really have to be so dependent on Krishna. I don't feel like that. So it would be artificial for me to chant Hare Krishna. Like a child calling for his... I'm not a child. So that's why we have the Association of Devotees to help us remember that who we actually are. And then we have Prabhupada's association to let us know, and we have the Bhagavad Gita and other books to let us know what our actual situation is, that we're not going to be here for a long, long time, and that every moment is actually valuable. We hear that. And that right now I'm a soul within this body, and the body may be better or worse, but actually it's not the best bargain I could possibly have. There's a better situation than being in the body. As a matter of fact, as the body gets older, it'll probably be less desirable as time goes on to be in this body. And material existence is probably not going to get any sweeter. The air won't get any cleaner as they spray the chemtrails all over the sky all the time. So you can breathe in all the chemicals they're supplying for us for free. The food's not getting any more organic as time goes on, as they throw in more and more chemicals on everything. Nowadays, if you touch the bottles have plastic, little tiny pieces of plastic. Whenever you drink the water, they give you plastic for free within it. Every time you get a receipt, there's poison on the receipt nowadays that goes right into your skin. So if we're thinking, well, things aren't so bad, well, they'll probably get a lot worse until we realize things are really bad. On the other hand, if we understand we theoretically understand how sweet Krishna can be, and we accept it, that Krishna can actually be quite sweet, Srimati Radharani can actually be quite sweet, then why not take the chance and ask them to engage us in their loving service? Now, since it's the absolute platform, that Krishna and his name and our attitude has to come to the absolute platform, and then in the spiritual platform, there is no distress. There is no material anxiety. There's only love. So we say, chant Hare Krishna, be happy. So why not ask Krishna to engage us in his loving service when we chant Hare Krishna in such a way as that we actually try to do it lovingly. It doesn't cost any extra. It's not a misuse of our time. Why should I be so loving to the holy name? I've been chanting for years. He never reciprocated with me. Why should I be loving to him? At least that's what they say. It's his name and himself, none different. But we can try it. It doesn't cost any extra. And if we get a little experience and Krishna reciprocates, chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The worst thing that would happen to us, or I should say the best thing that's going to happen to us, as Prabhupada wrote to me one time, because I asked him the question, because in the beginning I didn't like to chant japa so much. It's not that I'm ecstatic every time I chant japa now, but I know it's the path to ecstasy. But what I was good is remembering things, especially stories. Like the Krishna book, I could remember stories from the Krishna book, from the very beginning. So I thought, well, it's not very pleasant to chant my japa. I was always looking forward to getting my rounds done, but it was very pleasant remembering Krishna's pastimes, stories. So I chant Hare Krishna, and then I remembered the stories while I was chanting. So, and I asked the devotees if that was all right, and they said, well, it's better to remember Krishna's stories than other things. So it's okay. But I always had a doubt because I thought, well, if Krishna is not different from his name, and I'm avoiding him by remembering his stories, I said maybe I got something mixed up here. So I wrote to Srila Prabhupada and I asked him, is it all right if I remember Krishna's pastimes when I'm chanting? And as I said, I thought, well, maybe Prabhupada would write me back, I'm so happy to have such a disciple like you who's kind of engaged in remembering Krishna's pastimes. And I was actually quite surprised when Prabhupada gave me the answer. Actually, I was always surprised whenever Prabhupada gave me any answer. It was different most of the time. So he said, no, actually we shouldn't remember Krishna's pastimes when we're chanting. He said we should simply chant and listen. And if Krishna's pastimes come spontaneously, that's very nice, but not that we're artificially trying to remember. Now, it's not that it's bad to remember Krishna, his pastimes, or even his forms or names. I mean, we should memorize those things. That's in the Krishna book also. We should memorize his pastimes. But when we're chanting, we should also simultaneously chant to Krishna, asking him to engage us in his loving service, in the same mood as we learn from ultimately serving Prabhupada's instructions through his representatives. Prabhupada's represented as his deity form, that's why we have Guru Puja every day. He's also represented in his books, he's there in his books, he's there in his instructions, he's there in his videos, and he's also there in his devotees. All the devotees in the society, with all their different services, they're manifestations of Prabhupada and his mercy to different degrees. So he's also there in his devotees. And when the devotees give us instructions, he's also there in those instructions. Those instructions are actually coming through the parampara system from Krishna. And if we serve them, then we get mercy from Krishna and from the devotees, from Prabhupada also. I remember one time, one of the senior devotees asked me to do something I didn't want to do, and I was mentally debating, why should I do this? I know he has some motive, and et cetera, et cetera. So I went through a whole thing, and I couldn't bring myself to say yes. I'd do it. Because I was going through my whole list of things why he asked me in the past to do things. And then somehow or another, I remembered, well, why don't you do it to please Prabhupada? Because he's also Prabhupada's servant. I said, okay, why not? I was in a position, I had nothing else to do. So I said, sure, I'll do it. And I did it in the mood, I'll do it, because, Prabhupada asked me to do it, to serve his disciple and his devotees. So I said, yes. And then he sent me to a faraway land, far, far away, to do some service there. And Krishna gave me more mercy there than he ever gave me any other place. So it was a good experience for me to do something I didn't want to do, but for the better reason than I usually had for doing things. So if we take that into account, that if we have the proper instructions, it's due to the mercy of Prabhupada and his manifestations of the devotees in this movement. And then we can chant Hare Krishna with the mood, as I said, that nothing here belongs to me. Now, I think I own so many things already, which is, in one sense, it's a problem. But at least I can theoretically understand it's not really mine. I don't know what to do with these things, but at least I know that they're not mine. And I hope that in the future, Krishna will give me the intelligence how to properly utilize. So in the meantime, I can acknowledge these things are not mine, and although I may not be utilizing everything perfectly right now, but I accept it. So, and then I know that unless I make Krishna happy, and Krishna is only happy when I'm actually loving to him and his devotees. That's all he wants. So at least let me try to do that. It doesn't cost anything extra. And that Krishna is my real friend. And then what will happen if I chant, in that mood of Hare Krishna and just waiting for Krishna? Then I'll remember, then, as Prabhupada said, Krishna's form, at least his form, or maybe I'll feel Krishna's presence, or his form will spontaneously come. And what are those forms? These pictures of Krishna, the deities, what's said in the books, these things will come spontaneously without any other forcing to remember them. They just come. If we have the right understanding and the right attitude, and we chant Hare Krishna, and we do it, actually to Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. These things will come spontaneously. And that's called Krishna consciousness. That's what we're trying to accomplish. All the other things we're doing are all assistance to that. And of course, if we don't do them, then we have to utilize our energies in Krishna's service. We have to also use our mind in Krishna's service. We have to use our intelligence in Krishna's service. And we have to use ourselves in Krishna's service. And that will become what's called Krishna consciousness. So, I've already gone over time. So usually I talk about all the different things that are going on in ISKCON. Sometimes I talk, but these things, this is ISKCON. As one person asked Prabhupada in 1968, they're asking, maybe it was 67, Prabhupada was in Portland, Oregon, and they asked Prabhupada, he said that, Swamiji, what are you doing for the world? And Prabhupada said, well, you're chanting Hare Krishna, aren't you? He said, yes. He said, well, are you getting some benefit? He said, yes. He said, well, that's what I'm doing for the world. So we don't have to save everyone. We have to save ourselves, and maybe a few other people. We have to act as instruments. And that would be sufficient to change something part of the world. And that's what we're supposed to be doing, not acting as a substitute super soul to save everyone. When we can't even, we first of all save ourselves, chant Hare Krishna without offense, and then help others understand how to do it too. And then someone else in the same lecture, Prabhupada was giving initiation, and he said, Swamiji, could I take initiation? And at that time Prabhupada was quite liberal, so he said, okay. Prabhupada said, who is Krishna? So he said, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then Prabhupada said, who are you? He said, I'm Krishna's servant. He said, yeah, I can give you initiation then. We've become a little bit more strict right now. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Gaur Premanande.
His Holiness Prahladananda Swami Maharaj ki jai.